I am excited to be here with you today. My name is Michael Carey. I am joining you from Denver, Colorado, but I grew up in Ohio and began my teaching career in Phoenix, Arizona before moving to Denver. I come to this work having spent 14 years as a math teacher and soccer coach, and I am now a design principal with education elements. I'm delighted to be here with everyone today to talk about social emotional learning. Based on our participants, we have some experts in the field, so I'm excited to facilitate this discussion. This webinar is part of our Back to School series and is a continuation of our discussion on wellness, which we began earlier this month. Before we begin our content for today, I just wanted to share a little bit about education elements. We believe that schools grow when people grow, and our mission and vision are built around that idea. We believe that a more equitable and just future can be achieved by intentionally designing for each student's potential. And our vision is to bring out the best in people and their communities by designing school systems that are adaptable. And our approach to serving our partners in this world of education and why our partners stick with us is because we listen. We listen for context and to create belonging. We adapt for the context of your community and evolve as we learn. And our process has led to sustained change within the areas we work. And that is evidenced by our 10 years of experience. And throughout that time, we have served over 1,000 schools and districts, and 90% of our new business comes from repeat clients. And 92% of attendees find our workshops excellent or very good. So no pressure on me today. Hopefully I can hit that 92% mark. We'll see. We'll try our best. So I am a classroom teacher, as I said. So I am going to ask for participation in the chat. Thank you for everybody who has already participated. We have folks, Alaska. Very cool. I've never been to Alaska. I would like to go there. My first question for you is, when was the first time you heard the term social emotional learning, or SEL? I've got 2014. I've got 5 to 7 years ago. Thank you. In the last few years. Yeah. And I think that this is something that is consistent with my own experience. I mentioned that I taught for 14 years, and I remember at the beginning of my career, I think this was something that was implied, but was not talked about in a specific or structured way. And I think in the last few years, for me, this has been something that has really been discussed throughout the districts and the schools that I've worked with. And I think it is something that is very important. I think that we all know somebody, whether it's a student, whether it is a coworker or a friend, whether it is a family member or even ourselves, who have struggled with social emotional health at some point. And I think that it is super important that we are talking about this in a structured way within our school systems so that we can serve all the people that are part of that ecosystem. And that's going to ground us in our what for today. Through social emotional learning, individuals gain knowledge, attitudes, and skills that help them understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, demonstrate empathy towards others, build and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. Simply put, social emotional learning helps students develop the emotional intelligence and social skills needed to thrive in school and in life. So I'm curious, as you read through that definition today, what is a word or phrase that is standing out to you? And that can be for any reason. What is resonating with you as we look through our definition of what social emotional learning is? Feel free to throw that in the chat as you are comfortable. Needed to thrive. Thank you for sharing. Manage emotions. Thank you. Maintaining positive relationships. Empathy. I love that. Thank you, everyone. And as we are doing this work, it is a vast expanse. These are a lot of things, right? Uh, Knowledge, attitudes, managing emotions, empathy. This is difficult work, and so my hope for us today, as we talk about this, is that we can leave here with a little bit more knowledge of what social emotional learning is, and maybe some things that we can do in our own lives and work to impact those around us. So what is the like why has this popped up in the last couple of years, 5, 7 years, maybe 10 years if you're very experienced with this? And the reason is because our systems, as you know, are undergoing rapid change. It's more critical for schools and districts to foster this emotional intelligence and resilience in students. SEL continues to grow in importance as it equips students with the skills and tools to navigate the complexities of academic, social, and personal life. And as educators, we do have that responsibility to prioritize this learning in order to foster nurturing learning environments where students can flourish both emotionally and academically. This next question that I am going to ask is a little bit, I don't know, you might not feel comfortable answering, and that's okay. But what changes or challenges are you seeing in your school environment that are at the front of your mind as you join us today? I know I've got a few of mine, but I'm curious what these changes and challenges you're thinking about. Ooh, inability to cope and problem solve, talk with one another, managing emotions. I feel like mine might have been a little bit of a cop out. Cell phones, I think, are very difficult. Thanks everyone for your participation. Yeah, these are all challenges and these are all very real. And some of these challenges have been around for a very long time, but some of them are very new. And I think that is why this structure for social emotional learning has been at the forefront of a lot of our minds and a lot of the conversations around education. But there's always going to be pushback. COVID did not help. Melanie, you are absolutely right. And I think COVID for me may have really kicked all of this off. This is when we really started to talk about it in my experience. And I think the pushback is always going to be, well, what about my content? Right? I'm hired to teach math or I'm hired to teach ELA, and I am held accountable to that. I don't have time. How can I do both my content and social emotional learning? Well, research is showing that students with strong emotional intelligence perform better academically, and having the tools to manage stress, pursue goals, and work collaboratively with peers, these are all essential to a student's success. And these are all skills that are nurtured through social emotional learning. And if we feel that emotional health is a priority, then we encourage students to attend school and feel a connection with their peers and teachers and be actively engaged with the learning. So this social emotional learning is foundational to a positive academic environment, not only school-wide, but also at the individual level for all of our students. We do have articles that are linked here. Some of these I'm going to show live. But if there is an article that we do not do live today, you will be receiving all of these, all of the content from today, and you can go back and read these articles at your own time. Social emotional learning supports the development of empathy, communication skills, and tools for conflict resolution. Students who develop these skills are better positioned to form positive relationships with their peers and teachers in turn reducing incidents of bullying, enhancing the school climate and culture overall. I am going to link this article in the chat. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give everyone about a minute to just scan that article. And then as you're comfortable, drop something in the chat that you are noticing or wondering from that article, or something that you might be thinking about pursuing further. So I'll give everyone about a minute to quickly scan that, and then I look forward to seeing your responses. Uh-oh, we're having some technical difficulties. Let's try this. Hopefully that worked. And as you're scanning that article, if there's anything that stands out to you, feel free to drop that in the chat. I've got some chats coming in. Increasing empathy is something that I am seeing trending among the group. Yes, conflict resolution skills. And that's aligned with one of the challenges that we named at the start of our webinar. Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for the responses. I think the one that sticks out to me is that SEL must be a collective responsibility, shared by all the adults in the building and reinforced by a school-wide practice. And that, I think, is the change from when I began my career in the classroom to what we are seeing now throughout the educational landscape. It was all on the individual teacher back in the day, as it were. But now there are actually systems and structures and supports that we can implement into our classrooms that are school-wide. And the hope, and the research is showing this, is that by doing this at a school-wide level, we are able to have real impact in the lives of our students. Social emotional learning equips students with the emotional tools to help manage life's challenges more effectively. By developing and promoting self-awareness and resilience, social emotional learning also equips students with strategies to manage stress, help mitigate the long-term effects that unmanaged stress can help on or have on students, including their physical and mental health problems. This is aligned with our webinar that we did at the beginning of the month, where we talked about wellness, not only for our students, but also for ourselves. And how can we bring wellness into our own practice as educators? So this will be the last article that I share. And again, I'm going to give everyone just a minute to scan that article. And as you do so, feel free to throw anything into the chat that is resonating with you. Thank you, Emily. Emily is bringing up better health and the importance of managing our stress in such a way it leads to better health, right? Could I see some people messaging on ways that we can cope and ways that we can model that coping with our students? Shared vulnerability, yes. And the reason I really wanted to bring that up was, again, connecting back to what we talked about at the beginning of this month, where we were talking about ways in which we can bring this practice to not only our own lives, but also to the lives of our students. And so we've talked about the what and the why. What we're going to do now is we're going to shift into, okay, what does this look like? What does this look like in a school setting? What does this look like in an educational ecosystem? And key indicators for emotional health. These are the things that we're looking for, not only in our students, but also in everybody that we work with. And this can be both inside and outside the classroom. This can be our students, our coworkers, but it can also be our friends, our family members, and ourselves. And we think it's really important to name these things as things that we can look for. The first is self-awareness. Students who are emotionally healthy are generally in touch with the feelings and can articulate their emotions. Self-regulation. It's the ability to manage one's emotions and reactions in a healthy way, especially in these stressful situations that arise not only in the school, but also outside of school. Empathy. This is one that has shown up a lot in our webinar today. It's the capacity to understand and share the feelings of others, as well as show concern and support. Social skills. This is effective communication, a callback to something that we talked about as a major challenge within our school communities. This is active listening and the ability to build and maintain positive relationships. And finally, resilience. the capacity to bounce back. I know as a soccer coach, this is something that is really important to me in my practice. The ability to bounce back after a bad play or conceding a goal. This is something that is a real challenge for my students and my players. And this is something that is incredibly important, not only throughout our season, but after our season in their day-to-day lives. So when we are having strong communities with strong social emotional health, these are things that we should be seeing: self-awareness, regulation, empathy, social skills, and resilience. But what does it look like when we're not a healthy community? What does it look like when things are not going so well? These are the signs of social emotional challenges. We have withdrawal and isolation. And this is when interactions that were once enjoyed are suddenly gone. This is a student who used to love to do art that no longer has an interest, a student who used to play sports who quits the team. This is normally accompanied by difficulty forming friendships or isolating themselves from those friendships. We also see academic decline. This is a noticeable drop in academic performance, particularly when it is accompanied by emotional struggles. We have emotional outbursts. This is anger, frustration, sadness that is completely out of proportion to what is actually happening. And then finally, we have low self-esteem. This is a negative self-perception or constant self-criticism. And again, we think it's super important to name not only the signs of emotional challenge, but the signs of social emotional health. Because when we name them, then we actually have a platform for how to address them. So now that we've talked a lot about the what, the why, and the signs that you can look for in your school ecosystems and communities, I want to spend just a moment talking about, okay, so what does this look like? What does this look like within our schools? What does this look like within our districts? What does this look like within my classroom? What does this look like within my family? And these are some ways. We have 4 ways that you can support students with social emotional learning. But I do want to say, just like anything in education, this is not a watch one webinar and now you've mastered social emotional learning. I spent 14 years in the math classroom and every year got better at teaching the same topic. It's part of the constant innovation that we as educators have the responsibility to engage with. So here are 4 ideas that you can use within your school ecosystem. We can incorporate SEL into the curriculum. And this is the systematization of our SEL curriculum. And this ensures that students receive instruction in emotional intelligence and interpersonal skills, and that it's not something that just shows up every once in a while in one person's classroom. We must create a safe and inclusive environment. Providing a safe environment for students to express their emotions without fear of judgment by fostering a school culture that values diversity and inclusivity. Also, professional development. Training on SEL techniques is necessary for teachers to equip them with the skills they need to support students effectively. It's not just something that we show up and do because we're superheroes. And educators are superheroes, but we do need that training. We do need those systems of support in order to get better, in order to use research-based techniques in order to support our students. And finally, individualized support. Students who may be struggling with SEL that should be identified and individualized interventions should be provided, and that can look like mentoring or counseling. Now, when we started this webinar, I asked where you were from and your roles. And from that brief share out, there is a wealth of knowledge in this space. So I was hoping, as we're talking about the supports and the how, if anybody has anything that they would like to share in the chat, something that they have been doing within their schools or their communities that has really been impactful in the way that has really supported the students in terms of their social emotional well-being. So if there is anything that you have experience with or you have done, please feel free to throw it into the chat. Thank you, Dorothy, for sharing. At the beginning of each school year, naming how we as a community want to feel in our school spaces. Thank you, Dorothy. The chat's open. Feel free to drop anything into the chat that has really been impactful in your spaces. Thank you, Melanie. Sending out surveys to both students and parents. And I think that brings up another point, is the community-based aspect of this. Brandy talks about a cozy area for students to utilize, fidgets, posters, books for students to manipulate and calm down. I love that, Brandy. Brandy, would you mind, what age group are you working with, or is this across the board? Thank you, Lisa. PD for SEL, to become a trauma-informed school. Thank you for sharing, Lisa. Three to 5 years old. That's wonderful. Mood meters. That's another idea. I love that. And I want to highlight Brandy's work with having stations where students can calm down. And that's taking place with very young students, pre-K, 3 to 5 years old. And the fact that this work is taking place not only in a systemic way, but like right from the beginning, from the moment students walk into school, I think gives me a lot of hope. I think it gives me a lot of hope for what education can be. And I think it gives me a lot of hope for what our schools and our school communities can look like. And I think the other thing that I would like to close with is just like any other content area, just like math, ELA, social studies, science, there is a wealth of knowledge out there, and there are beautiful ideas to incorporate SEL strategies within your spaces. And I'm really excited to have facilitated some of this thinking with you today and some of this work, this very important work, to really create the schools that we want our communities to foster and support. So our last reflection, and again, in the chat, I know I'm a teacher, I can't escape it. Before this session, I used to think blank about social emotional learning, and now I think blank. Thank you, Melanie. Melanie says she used to think that it was specific to her classroom, but now it's really for everyone. And I think that's exactly right. And that goes back to, this has to be systematized. This has to be something that is taking place throughout the entire school, not just in individual one-off classrooms. Yes, Dorothy, thank you. Dorothy says that we've inspired, and I say we, the community, this space, not me, there, to get an SEL PD on the calendar. I would love to hear how that goes. Well, I really appreciate everybody's thoughtfulness, everybody's participation. I know it's early in some parts of the world. I know that it is later in some parts of the world, but I understand participating on Zoom via chat is not always the most exciting. So I really appreciate everybody's thoughtfulness and participation in today's webinar. If you're interested in more of what we have to offer at EE, Education Elements, we do have a blog that has weekly tips and resources, and that spans just about every topic within the world of education that you can think of. If you didn't get one of the articles from today, these resources will be sent out in an email as well as a recording of this session. So if there's anything that you would like to come back and revisit, please feel free to do so. And as ever, reach out, connect with us. We'd love to hear from educators. Thank you so much for all of your time. And it was really great to be here with everyone today. It's my honor to share this space with you. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the day and a great week. Take care.